So in the last video, what we did is we added a new skybox, but it knocked out some of our shadows here, made them a little bit too intense. There's a couple ways we can fix this. And because I come in and out of the project, you'll notice that sometimes my um, scene view or setup changes. But let's go here and go to window. And if you remember before, there was a couple lighting options under rendering. There's Light Explorer, which shows us what lights are in our scene. It makes it easier to select our lights instead of having to go through here. It also allows us to check our lights. There's also the window rendering, and then there's lighting, which I already have docked here. Now, if we go to our environment tab here, remember we have our sunlight, and that's the light that we have here. We have our Milky Way. What we can do right off the bat is increase our intensity multiplier a little bit, and you'll see that in the light areas, because it's almost white, we get a little bit. It starts to fill the intensity multiplier starts to fill it with a little bit more light in our scene. The problem with this is if we really jack this up, it just kind of highlights everything. It makes this a little lighter. This is going to be darker on the floor because we do have a darker material, but overall that looks pretty good. Something else we can do that I don't really always recommend is you'll see here there's a real-time shadow strength. If you can also play with like bringing that down. The problem is in darker areas it'll appear darker, and in lighter areas it won't. So I usually just keep that cranked up, and if I need to, I can change the different qualities of the soft shadow. So right off the bat, that looks a lot better. Let's talk a little bit more about light types. So we already know about spotlights because we created one here. It's really just a light with a cone shape, and then we created a skylight. Now there's something else that I like to do. Let me go ahead and hit F to focus here. And I like to create a couple things. One is a point light, which acts like a light bulb. So if I go to game object here and I go to light and then point light, you can see right off the bat, it's shaped like a light bulb, and it also gives off light like this. Some other good uses are, let's say for instance, I'm going to select my fireplace here and just open Pro Builder. I just kind of extend my fireplace a little bit. These faces here. I'm really just selecting the outside surface, just because I'm thinking in the next section we're going to actually play with particles for our scene. So let's say with this light here, we have these properties, and we only want it to appear in this area in here, and we want it to kind of like give off that light, and then we can also go in here and change the color. And it only affect this area in here. Now there's something else that we can do, because every time you create a light, the number of objects it touches. So for example, say there's 3 lights touching one object, that's considered 3 draw calls. A way that we can save on draw calls is something called baking. So if you look up here on this point light, you'll see there's the light type is point, and then there's mixed, which is a mix between real time and baked. That means if you're leaving the light in the scene. And then there's baked. So that with the intention of baked is you're going to take this light and we're going to mark our fireplace and our ground as static. So I'm going to check on static here. So if I select my ground, make sure this is static, here's my fireplace. What you'll notice is in our lighting tab here, in the very last option, there's this option that says baked lighting. And if I go ahead and I hit generate lighting, what you'll see is it creates this texture map, right? And this is our UVs for those objects. So this is a texture map. It's multiplying on the scene. So what I mean by that is if I select this light now and I delete it, notice that the light is still there. Well, that's actually a lie. The light is not there. What is actually there is a texture that is put on top of it. And what you can do is go into your scene and set up a bunch of these lights, and then just bake out that texture information, and you'll have all this baked lighting in there, and you could save on draw calls, which means save on the number of lights. So that's kind of a neat feature. And what's nice about this is if we go into lighting here and we turn on auto generate, it'll automatically update this light map as we go in here and we play with the intensity here. So for instance, notice that this is orange, and if we go ahead and say, okay, well, this is a magical fire here, I'm going to make it blue. You can see that it automatically updated the generated texture of this this light map, right? So, and if you look in their let's see, let's just jump to our next light. So let's go ahead and change this back. Let's say we want to keep this, and really you can keep it as whatever color you want. Like I said, in the next video, we're actually going to do some particle effects. We're going to move on from lighting. So actually, you know what? I'm going to delete that out. And because I have auto-generated ticked, it's automatically updating. Well, the reason I did that is I want to show you another light. So if we go to game object here and we go to lights, we've already done directional, point, and spot. Let's look at area light. Now, an area light really is only for baking lighting. So what's cool about area lights is they are the shape of whatever this box is here. Now, right now, in order to get an area light to work, and it looks like this one's really long, so let's go in our inspector, just kind of play with the height and width here a little bit, and then let's bring this range in, just so it's cutting through the floor, but it's not going too far. So you might be like, well, why am I not seeing anything? Well, let's say we have some sort of like light effect up here on our ceiling where we have, you know, they're those really nice, you know, they're kind of like these thin lights that sit, you know, accent lights. And let's say this, in this particular apartment, it's a light blue. What I can do is I can make this area light, which is in the shape here. And if I turn back on auto generate, you're going to see that it actually added, it's actually adding that light here. And as long as you have auto generate ticked, and it's actually, if we click on our preview here, you can see it's actually baking that lighting in the top. We can go in here and we can adjust the intensity. And then the color, let's say it's like a light blue accent or something. And it gives it a lot of personality. And we can actually go in here and just Control D and duplicate this light. And as long as we have like the walls, see how it didn't do anything here, but if I mark it as static, as long as we have those marked as static, it'll start to update or bring those in there. Now this isn't really what I wanted. I wanted it a little bit closer to the wall here. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this, increase this, and bring this a little bit closer here, like that. So it adds a lot of personality. You could also take an area light, I'm going to hit Control D, and you can make this your fireplace. And I like using these more for the fireplace than the point light because I like how it blocks out that area. And I can kind of control sort of the direction of that light. Let's kind of go a little bit back behind here. And I can make this one a little bit orange, like that. And then once I'm done with these, as long as I have that generate, I can, in here, I can, let's see. Looks like it's already generated. If I uncheck auto generated, I can go in and delete these. You can see it's kept all that shadow information. And now that lighting information is saved in my scene. And if I go to my lights here, we go to rendering and then light explorer, you can say I only have those two lights. So, which looks kind of cool. So what I'd like you to do is try to think of cool ways of sort of lighting your scene using those different types of lights. Model maybe some lamps and things like that. And I'll have the assignment written up. But here's another great example. Say you have the TV on and we want to go in here and then add another light here, which is another area light. So something like this. Maybe we'll bring that out here. Have it kind of geared towards, I mean, it depends on what you have on TV. Say we have something with sports with a lot of green. And then let's make sure that this TV is static or it won't work. Let's make sure this background is static and the floor is static. And then let's go back in here. Remember I turned off auto generate? Well, let me just hit generate lighting. Oops. Well, that was a big mistake because I had those other ones deleted. But you can see we're getting a good amount of bounce light. So remember, just bake lighting at the end once you have all your lighting in your scene set up. Even, I believe this one might be static. So let me delete this. No, it's not static. But let's check out what's going on with this light, why it didn't bake on our floor. And you can see it is set to mixed. Let's uncheck static for a minute. Let's do baked here. And the floor is static. Let's see what happens when we bake it this time. Yeah, there it is. See how it's baked there? I can actually go in here and delete this one now. I don't even need that. See how that's baked into my floor? So that's what's nice about bake lighting is it's got a nice textured, it's a nice way of blending textures with lighting information, you know.